but it is time to reveal the top 10 best young players under 21. Okay, so the list, you just saw the man himself there that we've already heard Rodrigo mention in Jude Bellingham. If you were keeping an eagle eye when Tar was speaking as well, you will see that we did flash up the article from the website, and you could see that Jude Bellingham was among the top three, along with Florian Wirtz and Jamal Musiala. I know you guys will be happy to hear about that, but let's take a look at the list, how it does stand. We're going to go with just the top 10. If you do want to read the full article, you're absolutely welcome to do so over on our website. But here is how the list is looking. Number 1, Jude Bellingham. Then Florian Wirtz, Jamal Musiala follows that. So you've got 2 Bundesliga stars there. Then we have Pedri and Gavi, Xavi Simons, Eduardo Camavinga, Rasmus Hojlund, Lamine Yamal, and Warren Zaire-Emery. So we're going to go from back to front. We've got Mark back with us as well. Don't worry about that. But we're going to start with you, Gab, because with Warren Zaire-Emery, you probably have to hear about this player more than any of us because you have to work with Julian Laurent all the time. So what more can you tell us about him?
Oh my God. It's continuous. It's continuous. I think after William Saliba, I don't think there's another French player he loves more. I think what strikes you a lot about this guy, and it is a bit of a common thread with some of these youngsters. I was just thinking about this, is some of these guys will make mistakes. They play with enthusiasm. You can tell their upside. But some of these guys really stand out for their maturity. I'm sure we'll talk about that. We talk about somebody like Lamine Yamal. And I would put Warren Zaire-Emery in a similar category because this guy plays in central midfield, and he looks like he's got the brains and intelligence of a guy in mid-career with 300-400 games under his belt. I don't know if that speaks maybe to the kind of education that some of these young players get, or if it's just him, that he just has a brain for the game, so to speak. But that's one thing that to me stands out probably even more so than his technical ability. And it's just a shame, of course, that he picked up that injury.
Rodri, I've got to go to you next with number 9. It is Lamine Yamal.
The good thing of Lamine Yamal for me is, apart from having him in the top 10 players, is that he's an actual star for Barca. Because now, I remember last week talking to a Barcelona fan, and he told me that he would pay any money, any amount of money to go to any Barca game and see and watch Lamine Yamal playing in action. No? That is the good thing of not only Lamine Yamal, but also Hojlund, Camavinga, Simons, Gavi, Pedri. I mean, they are actual stars, which is the good thing of all. And in this case of Lamine Yamal, I mean, he's quick, he's very smart, he's intelligent, he knows how to develop his talent under Xavi's presence in Barcelona. So that is why, I'm in love with that guy. I'm in love with the origins that he had. He never forgets where he comes from. And this is something good because he's only 16 years old. I mean, this is amazing. I don't know where you were when you were 16 years old, but I wasn't in a pitch. I wasn't in a stadium. Well, I mean, playing in a stadium. And when I see him, it's like, wow, man, he should be playing video games, not playing football at the highest level. And he's Barcelona star now.
Yeah, I wonder where everybody was. I know that I was trying to get on different lists, nightclub lists, VIP lists that I wasn't even legal to be in. About you guys. Anyway, Lamine Yamal, I mean, he could be on it for the next few years. As Rodri said, just 16 years old and already lighting up the pitch when he plays for Barcelona. And there are a few more Barca players to get to. We will. But Mark, in at number 8, it's Rasmus Hojlund. And there's not many things to celebrate at Manchester United right now, but this young man is definitely one of them.
Can I say that I'm a little bit surprised it is as high as 8? I think, well, listen, he's a 20-year-old. He came to Man United as a 20-year-old. He's obviously he's 21 now. He's got a big reputation, big potential, but he's had a tough year at United. And I think United bought potential when they signed from Atalanta last year. And I was speaking to Tor about him last year, and I think Tor's point was that he really, really developed in the second half of last season at Atalanta. He took time to adjust, but then he really kicked on. And he's gone to United, and unfortunately for him, he arrived with an injury, and he's gone into a team that is very inconsistent. And, I see a lot of frustration in him at times, in the sense that he's maybe not getting the service that he requires, or the team out seeing his runs. But obviously, there's a talent there. You can see that. You can see some of the goals he scored this season. There's one in the Champions League against Galatasaray when he basically turned on the halfway line, run straight through the defence and scored a great goal. But we don't know what he is yet. We don't know whether he is going to be the next big thing or whether he is finding a level in a team that isn't very good. So I'd like to see him in a good team where he gets the chances that he deserves as for all the runs that he makes. But I think we have to be honest in the sense that 8th in the top 10 of this list, and there's some great players that aren't in the top 10, I think he's done well to get in this. So whether there's a little bit of Scandinavian bias from Tor, I'm not sure. But I think as good as he is, Hojlund, I don't think yet we've seen the true Rasmus Hojlund.
Gav, can you speak for Tor and this Scandinavian bias?
Okay, I think sometimes it's Scandinavian bias. I mean, first of all, I broadly agree with Mark. But that said, regarding Tor's Scandinavian bias, I think sometimes he's too hard on Scandinavian players. A couple of years ago, I think it was 2 years ago, maybe 3 years ago, he put somebody named Erling Haaland at number 6 on the list. So I think because he was not good in the air, he said, and he's one-footed. So yeah, if he has a bias, I think he's often tougher on Scandinavians than he is on others.
Okay, Rodri, let me come back to you for number 7, because it is Camavinga at Real Madrid. Obviously a very versatile player and one that there is a lot of expectations on for the future.
Yeah, I mean, Camavinga is a top player for me, and he's going to make history for Real Madrid in the next decade because, I mean, he has everything on just one player. He plays well, when he's trying to attack. He plays well, even better when he's defending. He knows perfectly how to play in different parts of the game. And when you play for Real Madrid, this is even harder because we're not talking Camavinga playing for, with all respect, Atletico de Madrid or Espanyol, Sporting de Gijón, or whoever football team. And when you play in Real Madrid never wait for any player. And that is why when he came here for Real Madrid and when he signed for Florentino Perez side, everyone fell in love with him because, he's even attractive, man. He does everything well, which is the good thing of Camavinga because, the way that he plays and the way that he develops and the way that he's been growing up in the last season and a half is just amazing. And that is why, I think that he, alongside with Tchouaméni, he's going to be part of this Real Madrid midfield of the present and of the future in the next 10 years because, he's just amazing. And that is why, for me, he's one of the key players of the future because apart from, the way that he thinks football inside the pitch, the way that he is, his muscle structure, his physicality is just amazing for these century players that they need to be developing in teams like Real Madrid. So that is why he's ready for everything and he's more than deserved to be up there.
And we're seeing with number 6 as well, Gab, that this is a young player who seems to be ready for everything. He's already been around some of the top clubs. He's at Leipzig now on loan. It is Xavi Simons. He's proved to have that brilliant partnership with Lois Openda, and he's been a big part of what's good at Leipzig right now. Yeah,
Leipzig not going great this year, but Xavi Simons undoubtedly one of the real bright sparks. Obviously, he did it on loan in Holland last year. You assume he's going to go back to Paris Saint-Germain, but who knows? What strikes you about him, for me, is he's got a tremendous sense of where he is, where everybody else is on the pitch. He does not rely on his athleticism, although he obviously has that as well. I think he's tremendous. Might almost be tempted to have him higher on the list. And I'm just thinking how I can slip in a Sporting Gijón reference the way Rodri did. But hey.
Rodri did. But
we are two Sporting Gijón fans in here.
We discovered that the team I have a soft spot for back in Spain during my time there is Sporting. So I let that one slide. Nice little mention, yeah. Okay, I'm going to put the next 2 together, Rodri, and I'm sure you won't mind me doing so. Number 5 is Gavi. Number 4 is Pedri.
Well, I gotta admit that it surprised me a little bit because Gavi now is injured, and Pedri, he hasn't made it like maybe last season or even 2 years ago performances, but they are a really great talent player for Barcelona. If they are fit enough, they are more than the present and the future for Barcelona. The good thing of Gavi is that, he combines perfectly with Pedri, because what Pedri has, he doesn't have, and the opposite, the other way around. Because, Gavi for me is, the strength, the passion, the character in the midfield. And that is why if you compare Gavi with the rest of the top 10 players, he's completely different. Maybe you can compare Gavi maybe with Camavinga, because the rest of the players, they are really quality players. They like to touch the ball, maybe like Gavi, but Gavi has a little bit more than the rest, because the strength that he has and the character that he has on the pitch is just amazing. And that is why he combines perfectly with Pedri, because for me, Pedri is complete the opposite that Gavi, because, he's the mind, he's the brain. He's, the beautiful of the game, because when he plays for Barcelona, I remember him playing back in Unión Deportiva Las Palmas, and he was just a magical player. And we all in Spain wanted to see him playing for Barca. And when he came to Barca, he was just like playing back in school. He was like, I don't care that I am playing for Barca. I don't care about the high level pressure. And he's now doing well. The bad thing for me with Pedri is the injuries. They are not allowing him to be at the top form. But if you look at the under 21 players worldwide, he's more than deserved to be here, because he has everything to succeed in the next 10 years, and that is why Barca doesn't want to get rid of him. Doesn't really matter what happens.
So as I go 3, 2, 1, I'm going to give you guys each one of these players. I do want to stick with you for this, Rodri, because you did say you hope to see Jamal Musiala in the list. Here he is at number 3.
Yeah, Musiala for me, I'm in love with him. I'm in love with him because, the first thing that I watched a game in person, in the stadium, in the Allianz Arena, I was like, who this guy is? And why is he playing for Bayern Munich? With all respect for Bayern Munich fans, but I want to watch him in the Premier League or in Spain. And I think he has everything, the physicality, the way he attacks, the way he defends. He does everything well. And I think he needs a big coach, maybe like Guardiola, maybe, or someone of the same level. For me, he's more than ready for the present of the modern football. Maybe if you compare him to Jude Bellingham, maybe Jude Bellingham is more complete because he's scoring more goals, and maybe that lack of scoring for me is something that Musiala has to improve in the next years. But he's really fast, he's really strong. And I remember one comment from a guy that was playing against him, and he was like, man, I tried to tore him down, but it was impossible because he's fast and he's strong. So that is why, for me, he's going to be one of the one to watch in the next 10 years for sure.
Number 2, Gab, is Florian Wirtz, obviously flying at Leverkusen under Xavi Alonso right now. And you wonder if he'll stick around like his coaches next season.
I imagine he probably will stick around another season. If I were Xavi Alonso, I'd say, hey, make sure that guy Florian's still here. Has a sister, I believe, who also plays football. I'm being brutally honest here. I think this is a tour one. He's a phenomenal footballer, and I can tell you I'm in love with him, like Rodri's in love with everybody who we mentioned. Probably not very monogamous, I might add. But hey, who am I to judge?
I'm in love with you, too.
Thank you. I personally, he's one of those guys I might have had him a little bit lower on the pitch, just because I feel he's still a little bit raw, perhaps, in some ways. If performance is going to be one of the benchmarks, obviously you can't look past what Bayer Leverkusen has achieved this season, what he's done under Xabi Alonso. Obviously, he made his debut before, and we saw that he was good. But just to put that into context for those who've been under a rock, Bayer Leverkusen, 13 points clear at the top of the Bundesliga, have not lost a game in all competitions all season, weathered the departure of Victor, not the departure, the injury to Victor Boniface, their top scorer, weathered the departure of Moussa Diaby last summer. All these are disruptions for a player like Florian Wirtz, and yet he seems to have taken everything in stride. So I think that's obviously one of the things that really, really impressed Tor. This is a guy who, compared to most of these guys on the list, has dealt with disruption around him in terms of coaches coming in terms of players leaving, and yet he's taken it all in stride. And I think that's really, really exciting.
Really, really exciting. But I don't think it can be a surprise who is number one, Mark. Jude Bellingham topping the list right now, and understandably so.
Yeah, and he's not even 21 until June. It does seem like he's been around forever, because obviously he played in the Euros in 2021, and we're now 3 years on, and he feels like a veteran. He's only 20 years old, but he is such a special player. And I think if you go back 10 years to look at the kind of the young midfielders that were coming through maybe 10 years ago, Kevin De Bruyne, Paul Pogba. De Bruyne had a false start at Chelsea, and he became the great player that he is, and he is a great player. And a similar thing with Pogba. He took time at United and had to go to Juventus, but for Bellingham, it's all been a complete upward curve at an accelerated rate. He's been at Borussia Dortmund, had a great time in the Bundesliga, almost won the league there last year, and he's gone to Real Madrid as a 20-year-old, and he's dominating the scene in Spain. So it's impossible to find any flaws in his game. Maybe last week when he played for England, there's a suggestion that his temperament might be a problem down the line, but I don't see it. I mean, there might be the odd flashpoint, but he's got absolutely everything, and he could be one of these players that, he could end up being England's captain for 10 years and may never play in the Premier League, because why would he leave Real Madrid? He's at the biggest club in the world, in the arguably the best league in the world. The Premier League will have an argument about that, but they're not going to let him go. It could be a strange scenario whereby England's best player never plays in the Premier League. I mean, I know he's only young, but that could be the situation, because he's at Real Madrid and they're never going to let him go because he's such a top player, and he's 20 years old. And I know we're already talking about Ballon d'Or possibles this year. I guess he's the favourite right now, and it's crazy to think that at such a young age, but he's so far ahead of anyone on that list. It's kind of unfair, really. Should take him out of the list and have a different list. He's miles and miles and miles ahead of every other under 21-year-old.
You know who is in love with Jude Bellingham, Rodri? The Bernabeu.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, I really agree with what Mark just said, and it looks like he's 30 years old, and it looks like he's been playing for Real Madrid for the last 10 years. I mean, this is amazing. I've never seen something like this. And when everyone is comparing him to, for example, Zinedine Zidane, it's like, wait, hang on, what was doing Zinedine Zidane at that age?
Yeah.
I mean, this is something incredible, and this is one in a lifetime. That is why all Real Madrid fans are so in love. Not me, it could be, but all Real Madrid fans are in love with him, and they are really, enthusiastic about this figure, because they think that they are attending to the born and raised of a great football star that could make history at Real Madrid. And this is something, when we talked about Camavinga, we already said that succeeding at Real Madrid is really difficult, and when you are under Florentino Perez power, it's even harder for these kind of players, because you get so much pressure on your shoulders that it's not easy to come here and say, okay, I've been playing here for maybe 2, 3, 4, 10 years, and it looks like that. And when you talk to people like Toni Kroos or Luka Modric, that they were amazed by the way he trained in the last Real Madrid summer tour for the US. I mean, they were like, my God, man, I mean, this is something strange, and this is only once in a lifetime to have a player like this. So that is why Real Madrid have to look after this guy, because they're not going to find anyone better in the world of football in the next, I'm not going to say 10 years, in the next 50 years, because Jude Bellingham is unique in this world.
And your good friend Carlo Ancelotti must be delighted to have this player under him right now, Gab.
Yeah, I think he's delighted with a lot of the guys there. But again, Bellingham, the way he was so plug and play, has been tremendous. As Rodri said, he hit the ground running. He's done it at such a young age. He's also playing a different position, incidentally, than what he's played before, because he is playing further up the pitch. He's playing without a center forward in front of him, and he's taken all that on in stride. And to answer Rodri's question about what Zinedine Zidane was doing when he was his age. The summer that Zinedine Zidane turned 20, that's the summer he moved from Caen to Bordeaux. He wouldn't even move to Juventus for another 4 years. He wouldn't even played in his first World Cup when he was 26. So, yeah, completely different career. I mean, look, if he achieves half of what Zinedine Zidane did, he will have had a great career. But right now, he is so far ahead of everybody's curve. He's just out of sight.
Mark?
Yeah, I just, if we just look at in the round, I mean, he is so far ahead of everybody else. And I guess the one thing we'd have to ask is that, we talk about Zidane there, and his career was kind of a slow burner until he really took off. there have been some, real teen sensations over the years. Michael Owen, for instance, Wayne Rooney, who basically plateaued by the time in the mid-20s. And whether that's because they played too much football at an early age, certainly the Premier League, when it's not very forgiving in the sense that, rest wasn't encouraged back in those days. Whether Jude Bellingham will avoid that, but it's something he has to be mindful of, because he's been playing since he was 16 years old at Birmingham City. And a top career tends to be 10 or 12 years at the very top, because the sheer workload that players have these days. I think he's better. He's in a really good place in Spain, because the workload that he will face, it will be managed much better than if he was in the Premier League. But I still think, he's been lucky with injuries so far. He's had the odd little ankle knock at times, but we have to be mindful that, having come into the scene at such a young age, the comparison with Zidane, it's all about how you end rather than how you start. And I'd like to see where Bellingham is when he's 31, 32, having had 15 years on the clock. But like I say, he's in a better environment in Spain than he would have been had he stayed in England, because I think it's more conducive to having a longer career because of the smaller kind of workload placed on players.